Pablo Escobar. He made $60 million a day and still couldn't sleep at night. Not because of guilt, because everyone was a potential threat. He grew up poor, in the slums of Medellin, where survival wasn't guaranteed and ambition was dangerous. He watched the rich live behind walls and decided early he would be on the other side of that wall, no matter what it took. He started small, theft, smuggling, but his mind worked differently. He didn't see crime as survival. He saw it as a system, and systems can be scaled. When cocaine reached America, Escobar didn't see a drug. He saw an empire, and he built it fast. Billions flowing in, more money than he could hide, more power than anyone could control. He gave people a choice, plata o plomo, silver or lead. Take the money or take the bullet. Politicians, judges, police, entire systems bent around him, and most chose the money. But power like that rewires the brain. When everyone says yes, when no one says no, you stop seeing limits. You stop seeing consequences. And eventually, you stop seeing people. He ordered the bombing of a commercial flight. 107 people died, just to kill one man on board. That's what a God complex looks like. When you believe the rules don't apply to you, they eventually don't, until the world has no choice but to stop you. In 1993, Escobar was shot on a rooftop in Medellin, one day after his 44th birthday. But this was never just the story of a drug lord. It was the story of a man who refused to stay small and forced the world to deal with him, no matter the cost. Al Capone. He ran an empire worth $100 million a year, controlled half of Chicago's police, and beat a mayor in public while officers watched. No consequences. He wasn't born into power. He was born into invisibility. The son of Italian immigrants in Brooklyn. A family trying to survive in a country that didn't want them. Italians were blamed for crime, treated as lesser. And young Al learned early, the system wasn't built for people like him. In 6th grade, he punched his teacher in the face and never went back. The streets became his school, and the streets had their own rules. He joined gangs, rose fast, not just because he was violent, but because he understood people. By 26, he controlled one of the most powerful criminal organizations in America. Judges, politicians, police, all connected. It wasn't chaos, it was a system, organized, protected, profitable. But Capone didn't just want control, he wanted admiration. He opened soup kitchens during the Depression. People cheered when they saw him, and he needed that. This is what happens when power meets the need for approval. Violence becomes a tool, and kindness becomes a mask. Then came 1929, St. Valentine's Day. 7 men lined up and executed. His message was clear, but the public turned. And when the public turns, power breaks. They couldn't prove the murders. So they got him on taxes. All that power destroyed by numbers on paper. In Alcatraz, syphilis slowly destroyed his mind. He died in 1947, alone. But this was never just the story of a gangster. It was the story of a man who wanted fear and admiration at the same time, and learned you can't control both. El Chapo. He escaped a maximum security prison. Twice. The second time through a mile-long tunnel, with lighting, ventilation, and a motorcycle on rails. This wasn't luck. This was planning. He wasn't born into power. He was born into poverty. In the mountains of Sinaloa, Mexico, a place so remote, the government barely existed. No schools, no opportunities, just survival. His father was violent. Home wasn't safe. So the streets became safer. And in those mountains, the streets meant one thing. Drugs. He started young, not dealing, organizing, moving product, building routes, because his mind worked differently. He didn't see chaos. He saw systems, and systems can be optimized. He rose through the cartels, then built his own. The Sinaloa Cartel, not just a gang, a network. Tunnels under borders, submarines, private planes, a system that reached every major city in America. At his peak, Forbes listed him alongside presidents and kings, one of the most powerful men in the world. But power at that level comes with a cost. Paranoia. Everyone is a threat. Everyone is replaceable. Even loyalty expires. This is what survival does when it never ends. You don't stop running, even at the top, especially at the top. He was captured, escaped, captured again, escaped again, until 2017, when he was finally extradited to the United States, sentenced to life. But this was never just the story of a drug lord. It was the story of a boy who grew up without a system and built one so powerful, the world had to adapt to it. Griselda Blanco. She was called the godmother of cocaine. Before Escobar, before the cartels, she controlled Miami. And she did it in a world that didn't believe a woman could. She wasn't born into power. She was born into violence. In the slums of Cartagena, Colombia. By 11, she had already seen brutality most people never witness. Some accounts say she committed her first violent act as a child. Not out of anger, out of survival. She learned early, the world doesn't protect you. You protect yourself. She married young, escaped one dangerous life into another, and another. Each time, she adapted. Each time, she became harder. By the 1970s, she arrived in New York with a plan. Not to survive, but to build. She moved cocaine, built networks, eliminated competition, not through others, personally. She is believed to have ordered over 200 killings. Miami became her territory. Before the cocaine wars exploded, she had already started them. It wasn't chaos. It was a system, organized, violent, profitable. But power like that creates one thing: paranoia. She trusted no one, not partners, not family. 3 of her husbands died. In her world, betrayal was expected. This is what early violence does. It doesn't just teach survival, it rewires what feels normal. And when violence becomes normal, it becomes the solution. Every time. She was arrested in 1985, released, then deported to Colombia. In 2012, she was shot outside a butcher shop in Medellin. But this was never just the story of a criminal. It was the story of a girl who learned too early that the world only responds to force, and spent her life proving it. Whitey Bulger. He ran one of Boston's most violent criminal organizations, while secretly working for the FBI. His power didn't come from fear alone. It came from protection. He grew up in South Boston, a place where loyalty meant everything, family meant everything, and belonging was survival. But he learned something else early. Rules exist for other people. He was arrested as a teenager, sent to prison, but prison didn't change him. It taught him not how to avoid the system, but how to use it. When he returned to Boston, he built more than a criminal empire. He built leverage. He became an FBI informant, feeding them information on rivals, while his own organization expanded, untouched, protected, invisible. For decades, the FBI looked the other way, because he was useful, and useful people don't get stopped. It wasn't chaos, it was a system. One side enforcing the law, the other breaking it, and he controlled both. This is what real manipulation looks like, when you understand that every system is run by people, and people can be used. Loyalty became his weapon, and he pointed it in every direction. He was finally captured in 2011, living quietly under a fake identity in Santa Monica. 81 years old, decades after he should have been stopped. In 2018, he was killed in prison on his first night at a new facility. But this was never just the story of a gangster. It was the story of a man who didn't fight the system. He became part of it and used both sides until there was no difference left. John Gotti. They called him the Teflon Don. 3 trials, 3 acquittals, nothing stuck. He walked into court in $1,000 suits, smiled at the cameras, and walked right back out. Like it was nothing. Every time. He grew up in the South Bronx, one of 13 kids, poor enough that moving wasn't a choice. It just kept happening, and somewhere in that chaos, he figured something out early. Being broke isn't just hard. It's embarrassing. And that kind of feeling sticks with you. He dropped out at 16, not because he had to, because the streets gave him something school never could. Respect. People knew his name. That mattered. He moved up through the Gambino family slowly, watching, waiting, learning how everything worked. And in 1985, when his boss got killed, Gotti didn't wait around. He made sure he was next. Nothing about it was accidental. He knew exactly what he was doing, but what made him different? He didn't stay in the shadows. He liked being out there. Cameras, crowds, attention. Standing outside his club, talking to people like he was some kind of celebrity. It wasn't just about power, it was about being seen having it. And for a while, it worked. Until it didn't. The FBI bugged his apartment, recorded everything, and in 1992, it all came crashing down. No more suits, no more cameras, just a courtroom and a life sentence. He died in prison in 2002. No spotlight, no crowd, no one watching. For someone who built his entire life on being noticed, that might have been the worst ending possible. Lucky Luciano. He didn't just run organized crime, he organized it. Before Luciano, the American mob was chaos. Italian against Irish, family against family, constant war, constant loss. Lucky Luciano looked at all of it and saw a waste of resources. Salvatore Lucania was born in Sicily in 1897, came to America as a child, Lower East Side of Manhattan, a neighborhood where survival meant choosing sides fast. By 9 years old, he was running a protection racket, charging other kids money not to beat them up. When a young Jewish boy refused to pay, Luciano didn't fight him, he befriended him. That boy was Meyer Lansky, and that friendship would reshape American organized crime forever. He rose fast, too fast for some. In 1929, he was kidnapped by rival gangsters, beaten, stabbed, left for dead on a beach in Staten Island. He survived and earned a nickname, Lucky, but luck had nothing to do with it. He was the most strategic mind in the room, always. When Prohibition ended, he saw what others didn't. The old bosses were obstacles, so he removed them. In one night, he had 4 rival bosses eliminated, the night of the Sicilian Vespers, and built the Commission, the governing body of American organized crime. This is what a Machiavellian mind does. It doesn't fight the system, it restructures it, removes the inefficiencies, and builds something that runs without chaos. He was deported to Italy in 1946, never returned to America. He died in Naples in 1962, at an airport, waiting for a flight. He never made it home, because home was always the system he built. Not a place, a structure, and that structure outlasted him by decades. Frank Lucas. He didn't buy from the middleman. He went straight to the source. While every other dealer in New York was paying inflated prices through layers of suppliers, Frank Lucas flew to Southeast Asia, made a deal directly with the heroin producers, and brought the product back himself, hidden in the coffins of American soldiers returning from Vietnam. Harlem had never seen anything like it. Frank Lucas grew up in rural North Carolina. Dirt poor. He watched his cousin get shot in the face by the Ku Klux Klan as a child. No justice, no consequences. And young Frank learned something that day. The law doesn't protect everyone equally, so he would make his own rules. He arrived in New York as a teenager, broke, unknown, started from nothing, but he watched, studied, and found his mentor in Bumpy Johnson, the most powerful man in Harlem. He absorbed everything, and when Bumpy died in 1968, Frank was ready. He built something different, not just a drug operation, a brand. His product was called Blue Magic, purer than anything on the streets. Cheaper, too, because he had cut out every middleman between Southeast Asia and Harlem. At his peak, he was making $1 million a day. Cash. This is what happens when exceptional intelligence has no legitimate outlet. The same mind that could have built a corporation built an empire in the only market available to him. He was arrested in 1975. His empire collapsed overnight. He became a government informant and helped bring down hundreds of corrupt police officers. Frank Lucas died in 2019. At 88 years old, he outlasted almost everyone: the dealers, the cops, the system that was never built for him.